Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week we had some major Apple app updates. We also have additional news about what to expect with iPhone 14. We're expecting some new iOS 15.5 betas and much more. This is your news update for the week of April 18th, 2022. And the first thing is, Apple ran a Shot on iPhone macro challenge and revealed the winners recently. You can see this on Apple's newsroom, and some of these are really incredible photos that people took with iPhone 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, since they have the macro capability. So you can see this one's called Sea Glass. We've got The Cave, and these are different winners. We have a spider web with some different water droplets on it, and some different flowers, a strawberry down here with some water droplets on it, and more. And so you can see this. I'll leave a link to it in the description. And these are some things that I think Apple may want to consider, maybe for some new wallpaper in the future. Maybe have a contest, have some people complete some of these photos. Some of these look incredible, and you can download high-resolution versions of them as well. So you can see them in their full quality, close up, and some of them are really great. So I definitely recommend checking them out, and hopefully Apple will use some of these for future wallpapers. You can use them now, or maybe we'll just see something like that in future updates, like this one here. It looks fantastic. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Apple this past week announced it would help celebrate Earth Day with $1 donations on purchases from now until Earth Day on April 22nd. For every purchase made on the Apple App Store app, apple.com, and in the Apple Store itself, Apple will donate $1 to the World Wildlife Fund. To go along with Earth Day, Apple is offering an Apple Watch Activity Challenge. So like they do many different years and other different times around the year, users can do any workout for 30 minutes or longer on April 22nd, according to Apple. Users who complete the challenge will get a special badge. You can see it on Mac Rumors here. So you'll get a special badge along with animated stickers. So that's something you can get if you work out on Earth Day for about 30 minutes or so. So if you want to check that out, you can see that on Mac Rumors, but also it will be in the Watch app as well for your activities later on. So you'll see that on April 22nd. Beats Studio Buds were released in 3 new colors this past week with Ocean Blue, Sunset Pink, and Moon Gray. You can get them now for $149. Moon Gray is exclusive to Amazon, Ocean Blue is exclusive to Best Buy, and Sunset Pink is exclusive to Target. So they've done some exclusivity deals, and you can get those now. Now, Metaverse app developers are apparently going to have to pay 47.5% commission on all sales through the Metaverse App Store. Apple responded this, calling them hypocritical, as Meta or Facebook previously criticized Apple for charging a 30% fee to developers on the App Store itself. So Apple has been criticized for a 30% fee on this, and now apparently Meta is going to charge almost 50%. So hopefully they change that. Google this past week also launched a new Switch to Android app. You can see the app here. You can switch to Android with it, or just try out Android and move everything across. And it's a new app that they released on iOS to bring more information across. So you can hit start, then you'll scan a QR code that's on your phone and then move everything across. So that's something that was released this past week if you want to try it out. Now, if you were hoping to get your hands on a new MacBook Pro, the delivery times continue to slip due to lockdowns going on in China and problems with the supply chain overall. Many models are pushed back to as late as July. So you can see here on the Apple website, depending on which option you pick, just going to the default options says it delivers on May 24th to June 8th, or you could pick them up in the local store as soon as June 9th. So depending on the configuration, whether or not it's custom or not, it can really set this back even further. So you'll see June 6th to June 21, and that's just for the basic configuration. If you want a custom one, it could be even later. So it's unfortunate, but it looks like they're selling a ton of these as well. They're great devices, but if you're trying to get your hands on one, it may be a while. Now, this past week, I did a separate video about all of the different app updates. There were a ton of updates to everything from iMovie on iOS to Final Cut Pro, Motion and Compressor on Mac, as well as Pixelmator and also Adobe After Effects. So all of those things were updated this past week, and many of you seem to enjoy that video. So with iMovie got some major updates that were promised at the March Apple event for the new iPad. So we had iMovie 3.0, and there's some new updates there as well. If you'd like to see more of those videos as different updates come out, whether that be from Apple or more, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below, but I covered all of the major changes in the updates in that separate video. So be sure to check that out if you're interested. Now, WhatsApp also gained updates or gained a preview of the updates with emoji reactions. So you'll have emoji reactions, admin delete for groups, file sharing sizes now up to 2 gigabytes, and larger voice calls. And I talked about this the other day, and what that means is up to 32 people at once on a voice call. So all of those things are getting updates, tons of great things coming to different apps. So let me know what apps you're most interested in the comments below. Siri has been something that was leading at the time of its release and then has since slowly slipped behind. A report by the website called The Information covered Apple's privacy policy and how it sometimes has been difficult for some features to work properly without gaining more information from the user. Tim Cook and management have been very strict about that with engineers and development, and a few years back, Apple was exploring using Siri to make purchases with apps and stores. So maybe just purchasing an app using Siri and not having to maybe double-click the power button or power sleep wake button or use Face ID. Due to Apple's strong privacy stance, though, they were unable to do this, and it would have been able to be done if they collected more data. So it's something that Apple has been trying to update features, but has been very strict about privacy. So I'm curious if you would want them to maybe collect more data so you could have more features, maybe like Google does or Amazon, or are you happy with Apple's current setup with Siri? What would you like to see with Siri in the future? A couple weeks ago, Apple stopped signing iOS 15.4, meaning you can no longer downgrade to that version. That leaves us with iOS 15.4.1 and iOS 15.5 betas. Usually when that happens, we'll have a new public release within 2 to 3 weeks. That's not always the case, but typically that's what happens, and we could see a public release this week or next with some bug fixes and security updates. Now, we are early on with iOS 15.5, so Apple may wait to release all of those updates with 15.5, but usually since we've only had beta 1, it seems likely that we would have some other small update in between. But again, Apple may wait for 15.5. And we are expecting iOS 15.5 beta 2 this week, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. Typically with early betas, we have a bi-weekly release schedule. So beta 1 was earlier a couple weeks ago. Now we'll have beta 2, and then in a couple weeks we'll have beta 3, with after beta 3 to later betas, beta 4 and 5, it will be on a weekly schedule usually, with a final release probably around June 6th when we have WWDC and iOS 16. So we'll have iOS 15 betas all the way up until that point, then 15 betas all the way up until the release of iOS 16 in September, if Apple continues to do what they normally do. So normally we'll have those releases in that order. We'll have 15.6, 15.7, maybe even 15.8, and then the final release of iOS 16 in September. Then it comes out to the public and we're on iOS 16 versions. That's typically what Apple does. So we'll be getting our first look at iOS 16 on June 6th with beta 1 releasing then, and we're also waiting for changes with iPadOS 16. Parker Ortolani on Twitter posted what he thinks iPadOS could benefit from and did some concepts of it. So I wanted to share those with you. So if we go over to our photos, I have the same photos that are on Twitter here, and you can see it says more power, more fun, more iPad. And the first idea is app pairings, where we could have 4 different apps at once with different arrangements. This is something I think would be very useful with maybe Maps off to the side, Safari and Mail split screen. So that makes a lot of sense. I would love to see something like that. Also, Mission Control, where it could have an update with sort of a card interface where you could better understand what's going on, how you have your apps organized, and even maybe Spotlight within Mission Control. So that's something I would really love to see, where you could better control what's on your screen at once when multitasking. Then finally, with a studio mode, we could have something with an iPad with an M1 where we could plug it into a studio display or another monitor and then just have a full Mac experience. This is something we could definitely do since we have the M1 chipset up to 16 gigs of RAM, the same as what we have with the current MacBook Air and MacBook Pro. So it's definitely powerful enough. It would be great to see something like that. So maybe we'll get some of these ideas, maybe we won't, but I think these are some of the best concepts I've seen that seem realistic so far. Now, watchOS 9 will bring new watch faces, of course. We get that every single year, and we should see that at WWDC as well. However, there's been more news about it, maybe having new workouts, new sleep tracking, and women's health and medication tracking. Apple has not said yet, though, which devices will support watchOS 9, but it is possible Series 3 will be supported still, as they still offer it this year. So it makes sense that they would support at least some of the features on watchOS 9 on Series 3, but I think it's time time for them to retire Series 3, and I really wish they would have continued with maybe Series 4 or Series 5, as it's much, much faster. This year's upcoming Apple Watch Series 8 is said to be gaining temperature monitoring and other new health features, according to Mark Gurman. But he did say not to expect blood pressure monitoring yet, as Apple is still working to make sure this is accurate. So hopefully we'll see something like that this year, but it may be another year out. Apple Watch is also eventually going to get emergency satellite communication features, according to many leakers as well. One of the options would allow you to send an emergency message to one of your contacts, or the other option would be to report an emergency. So this would be just for emergency situations, as that would take a lot of battery. You could communicate your location if you were in an emergency by yourself and needed some help. So that would be great. We've had that long rumored for iPhone 13 and we never saw it, and maybe we'll see it with iPhone 14, just for emergency communications. I think that would be really important and a great upgrade. TSMC, who manufactures Apple's processors for Mac and iPhone, is on track to start producing 3nm chips. That would be in the second half of this year for upcoming iPhones and Macs, and it allows for better power efficiency and less heat. So that's something many of us have wanted: better battery life, less heat from the device, and faster processors. So they're planned to be used in the upcoming M3 Max and possibly the iPhone 15. It does take a while to ramp that up, and it might be with the A17 CPUs. So we could go from 5nm down to 3, which is just unbelievable if you've been following this for any number of years. Recently, a photo of the iPhone 14 surfaced on Weibo showing what the iPhone 14 looks like in model form. It shows 4 models as expected, with an iPhone 14, 14 Max, 14 Pro, and 14 Pro Max, doing away with the iPhone 13 mini size. So it was just for the 12 and 13, and now we won't have a mini size any longer. These molds are mostly created so case makers can get ready making their cases for upcoming iPhones later this year. As you can see, there's still a camera bump and a similar camera arrangement to what we currently have with the 3 different lenses. So it doesn't look like it's too different there, but we are seemingly getting a 48 megapixel camera with a larger sensor. So of course, we'll have to wait and see what Apple shows us in September. A recent patent found by Patently Apple shows that Apple is working on a case for iPhone 14 that's sort of a folio case combined with what we have with the leather sleeve. So it would have sort of an always-on display with the time and maybe when a call comes in, and hopefully maybe more of an always-on display feature with hopefully some functionality. With the leather sleeve, I showed this in a separate video, you cannot interact with the area that's exposed. Maybe we can in the future to answer a call, where we would have touch sensitivity just in that area while it's turned on. But it does look like they're working on this combined with sort of a folio case, according to the patent. Also, with upcoming iPhones, for some time we've heard that Apple would be adding a periscope telephoto zoom lens, similar to what we have on current Samsung phones. Apple's working on those, and according to the Elec, Apple has secured suppliers Jawa Electronics and LG Innotek. The periscope zoom camera is said to be coming in the iPhone 15 models, though, so it would be with a sort of redesigned chassis where we would have a periscope zoom lens, maybe 10x times zoom, where we would have that optical zoom lens similar to what we have on Samsung phones later on. We haven't had any HomePod news for quite some time, but some time ago there was some saying that Apple is working to expand its HomePod lineup. Mark Gurman this past week said that Apple is still working on a combined HomePod and Apple TV with FaceTime camera. So we could have something like that with a HomePod with maybe a camera built in for those calls that goes in front of your TV, and then HomePod and Apple TV functionality combined. That would take up less space, of course, and maybe even have a surround sound option in the future. I know we don't really have that now. We can combine them as a stereo pair. I currently use them on my TV, but to have that all combined in one device would be great. So maybe a subwoofer option in the future as well, but there hasn't been any rumors about that. Now, Apple is testing at least 9 new Macs with 4 different variants of the M2 processor. So as we get closer to the next generation Mac processors, their own Apple Silicon, it looks like Apple's testing those different variants with third-party apps right now. So this would be the next generation M2, M2 Pro, M2 Max, and eventually M2 Ultra. So we could see those probably within the end of the year with maybe a new MacBook Air, or maybe they won't put them in anything other than maybe a future Mac Pro. So those should be in the works. Apple is usually 3 years out, so they could even be working internally on M3 and M4. Apple's AR and VR mixed reality headset may be delayed until early 2023, according to analyst Jeff Poo. Many have said that that we could see it by the end of 2022, but with current supply chain limitations, that may be delayed until early 2023. It seems like there's a lot of references in the code of different iOS future versions, according to Mark Gurman, iOS 16, so I would expect to at least see some sort of version or at least the software of Reality OS later this year, or maybe at WWDC. So maybe we'll get our first hint of it there, but really, it seems like Apple's taking their time with this product and wants to get it right. So that makes a lot of sense. So that's everything from this past week's news update and different updates. If there's anything else you'd like me to cover in these weekly news updates, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.